Good day and welcome to this session where we are going to look at the impact that FICA or anti-money laundering legislation has on our audit in general. Without going into every single document, it is important to consider the impact of anti-money laundering throughout the audit process. So as you are concluding on audit working papers, on audit programs, work programs, and then of course also with our going concern assumption at the end of the day. Throughout all of that, you have to consider the impact of anti-money laundering legislation. But some specific places where we need to do documentation include the following. First of all, during your acceptance of the engagement, you will already think to yourself, one, do you want to take on this client? Is this the type of client that you want to have in your firm's risk profile? But then, also important to inform your client of the responsibility that the firm has in terms of FICA to report any suspicious transactions, as you can see on the screen. This is then included in the engagement letter in 10.21. Next, you consider your understanding of the client or the entity, and there we've got 10.30 that's going to help us with the discussions. You can see there, point 9 in this screenshot asks you to consider or to discuss with the client any specific laws and regulations that may be applicable to them. This would probably be where you will consider or ask the client, should they be registered as an accountable institution or as a reporting institution, and then of course have the rest of the discussions from there onwards. You then move on to the risk assessment, and this is where the auditing standard on laws and regulations is going to get very, very active. The working paper that we're looking at is 11.21, and I want to actually show you how to do that. So we start in this working paper where we've got a whole long list of all the documents that we have available, and I am going to select the relevant acts. So moving down, selecting FICA, I will consider what is the impact thereof. Probably possible material effect because of the penalties that could be involved and because of the specific work that I may need to do for the accountable institution. Other ones that could be relevant is going to be PRECA, Prevention of Combating of Crime or Corrupt Activities, Prevention of Crime Act, and POCTA-TARA, which also requires certain reporting responsibilities in terms of terrorist activities. Once I've selected them, I click on Submit, which will then create my working paper. In here, I've got my standard short descriptions. I will have to document how the entity is complying with this legislation or with the framework, from where I will refer back to 10.30, the working paper where I did my inquiries with management just now during understanding of the entity. Do not forget to go to the laws with the material effect in terms of FICA. For your accountable institution, you will probably now have to attach a copy of the certificate of registration with the FIC by the client to confirm whether they have complied. And from there, then probably your reference to the working paper. Coming back to the last steps in finalization, during your sign-off, your assessment at the end of the day, you will of course consider whether there was anything reportable, anything concerning, but then the documentation again comes in the senior final checklist 260, where we just confirm whether any matters that had to be reported have in fact been reported, whether in terms of FICA or even if it was a reportable irregularity. And that is really it. Quite simple.